Hi, in this video I'm going to walk you through all the things I needed to do to change to move to a dual rate with my energy supplier. So that's my meter side of things and also my Tesla Powerwall. So coming up. Hi, John Tisbury here. If this is your first time here and you're interested in solar power, PVs, EVs, that kind of thing. I also cover photography and cinematography on this channel as well. If that's of interest, hit the old subscribe button, hit the notification bell icon to be notified of new updates as and when I upload them. As I inferred on the intro, this session is about how I swapped from my previous energy supplier to my new one, set up a dual rate tariff and reconfigured my Tesla Powerwall. I guess this is probably going to be more use to people in the UK, specifically England, Scotland and Wales, because unfortunately Ireland, you apparently are not going down the smart meter route at the moment. Maybe in the future, but currently not now. So I say all the sort of things I'm talking about here in terms of the stats and the specs and the tariffs and the rates are for UK base only. So if you're outside of the UK, may be of interest to you, but other than that, that's my target audience. So to give you a bit of background, oh yeah, I've got quite a bit of notes here in front of me, so excuse me if I keep referring to them because there's quite a lot of stats and technical information that I wanted to get correct, and it doesn't stay in the old grey matter. So what I'm going to chat to you about, I'm going to chat to you about a configuration, what I needed in place in terms of the meters, and then the changes that I made to the Powerwall. So that's the aim of this video. We've currently got a Tesla Powerwall 2. It was set on self-power mode, which is like the default mode that most people go on to. And as it suggests, the self-power mode is designed to store excess solar during the day into the battery to power the house when the sun's gone down. There are other modes within the Powerwall. There are 4 modes in total, so I'll bring those up later in a little table and chat through them. But that just sort of sets the scene from where we were in terms of our configuration. We have a 4 kilowatt solar array with 3.8 inverter. Those are the main things. The Powerwall 2 with a gateway 1. So the gateway 1 is the original gateway, which doesn't have the backup facility. Gateway 2 is the new one that they're now fitting as standard, which does have the gateway backup facility. What else we got? We got a few other bits and bobs as well, which are not really relevant to the setup that we're talking about here, but for completeness I'll include them. We have a zappi charger, a Mark 1 zappi charger to charge our EV. We have an eddi, which heats our hot water from surplus solar. And we have a harvi and a hub, which does all the comms basically and gets them to talk to each other. We moved our energy supplier on the 5th of August. We moved from E.ON Energy, who we were with, through to Octopus Energy. And the reason we wanted to do that is we want to take advantage of their Go tariff. And that tariff is specifically targeted for EV owners. It has a standard charge of 25 pence per day, and the normal day rate is between 13 and 14 pence depending on where you are. There's sort of a banding where you are geographically. And the off-peak one, which was the real one that I was interested in, is 5 pence. So between 12:30 and 4:30 in the morning, it's 5 pence per kilowatt hour. So as I say, targeted purely at EV owners. To be able to take advantage of that tariff, you need a smart meter. And in the UK, we're sort of going through the installation of smart meters at the moment. There are 2 standards, as a SMETS1 and a SMETS2. Both are, well, I was going to say both are, that's not quite true. There's a secure smart meter. Secure is a trademark brand, so a secure smart meter, and they're available in SMETS1 or SMETS2. SMETS stands for Smart Metering Equipment Technical Specifications, 1 obviously being the first one, and the new version is, strangely enough, 2. SMETS1 would have typically been installed prior to the cut-off date, which was 15th of March 2019. And I say a cut-off date, it doesn't mean that they won't install past that date, but Ofgem set a target of the 15th of March 2019, that any SMETS1 meter installed after that time wouldn't account or wouldn't be included in their Ofgem targets. So Ofgem had set each one of the suppliers targets for the number of smart meters they were to install, and they can't now include installations post that date of any smart 1 meters. That doesn't mean to say that they won't fit smart SMET1 meters, and they may do. It's best to ask the question, really. And in a minute I'll talk about how you know whether you've got a SMETS1 or a SMETS2 meter. Our meter was fitted in July of this year, and as soon as the engineer rocked up on the drive, before he got out of his car even, I said to him, "Is it a SMETS2 you're fitting or a SMETS1?" Because I was interested to know. And he said it's SMETS2. He did then go on to say later that SMETS1 are a little bit more tolerant of installation, so they can go in places that are adjacent to our electrical components, whereas SMETS2 can sometimes be affected by adjacent electrical components. And there was a bit of worry in our setup, because as you'll see, that we've got a fuse box in our meat cupboard, because of there wasn't anywhere else to put it. So he was a bit concerned that the meter wouldn't function properly. As it turned out, it was fine, but he did say that if SMETS2 didn't work, once I'd installed it, he would swap it out and put a SMETS1 in. Yeah, so if you've got SMETS1, all is not lost. The government and the industry have agreed to build interfaces which allow SMETS1 to be moved across to the new DCC systems which support SMETS2 meters. DCC is the data communications company, and they're the company who are responsible for establishing and managing the infrastructure necessary to support the rollout of smart meters across Great Britain. What they're saying is that even though if you've got a SMETS1 meter and perhaps you've swapped energy supplier, and it's now gone into a dumb meter, you may have lost that smart functionality, but when it's enrolled back into the new DCC system, the functionality will come back and you'll be able to change suppliers without any technical problems. And that process is known as enrolment and adoption. So everyone's signed on to that, all of the shippers, all the suppliers have signed on to that, and that should then start to deal with any problems. SMETS1, SMETS2, how do I know which one I've got? The unfortunate thing is that the meters, from my research, I understand that there is nothing written on them which says I am a SMETS1 or I am a SMETS2. But there are a couple of telltale things to look for. A lot of the SMETS1 meters, when they are installed, will have a separate sort of comms box wired adjacent to the main meter. And it's a thinner, smaller ones. A lot of the meters that were installed were LNG brand, and they have a thinner box, a communications hub to the side of it, and that's generally branded Trilliant. So that does all the remote comms. SMETS2 are more secure. It's a better installation. Plus, it gets around the problem where you live in like a block of flats or a basement or something, that your in-house display doesn't work because your meter is 20 floors away in the basement and you're up on the 19th floor. So SMETS2 overcomes that particular installation restriction much better than SMETS1. In SMETS1 it wouldn't work. The improvement in SMETS2 with the HAN, the Home Area Network solution, is much better. And what they're saying is that smart meters can be installed in 95% of GB premises, UK premises. Right, so SMETS2, what we're looking at for SMETS2. SMETS2 generally have a comms hub built into it. It is a separate unit, but it looks part of the one box. But you'll see there's normally a joining line between the two. And they sit generally on top of the electric meter. And obviously I'm talking about electric meters. I've sort of ignored gas really, because really relevant for us in terms of Tesla Powerwalls and what have you, because I don't do a gas-powered Powerwall at the moment. There's a number of barcodes on that meter, so you can actually have a look at that. It also, that box on top is the comms hub, so it'll have lots of little LED flashing lights on there, and they'll be labelled generally underneath with like WAN, wide area network, mesh network, and HAN. One of the other things you'll see, it'll have either SKU1 or SKU2, SQ1, SQ2 printed on it. SKU1 is more common, SKU2 is for central and southern regions, so depending on where you are in the UK, it'll be one or the other. So if you're looking for those things, you'll indicate whether you've got SMETS2. If they're not on there, then you've got SMETS1, basically. But as I say, either can work. It's just a bit more configuration for SMETS1 to get adopted by the DCC. So where are we? We've got chosen our tariff, and we've got our smart meter, our secure meter, either SMET1 or SMET2. So when you join Octopus Energy, in my example, they put me on an interim tariff to allow me to obviously swap from my previous supplier. If you're already on them and you want to go to a Go tariff, well, that's fine. They'll be able to configure that quicker. And what they do is they set your account up, and then they notify you via an email that you're available to move across to the Go tariff. The email sets out what you need to do, and excuse me. And click on the email. There's a link in there which will take you to Octopus Energy's website, to a web page, and there's 3 buttons on that web page, which is confirming the T's and C's basically for moving across to the Go tariff. On the 3rd click of the button to confirm, it should automatically generate an electronic transmission in the background to your meter to set it all up for half-hourly reads coming through, and configure it to the understand that at 12:30 to 4:30 that's your 5p tariff. It should work, and it has worked for loads of people. Unfortunately for me, for some reason it didn't. I got an error message. I tried it a couple of times over a day or two, same thing. So I took a screenshot and then emailed Octopus Energy, and they go, okay, no problem, leave it with us, our technical team will resolve it. And within a few days I got an email back to say, right, try it again, and this time it went through fine. And that evening I was on the Go tariff. Incidentally, if you do decide to move across to the Go tariff, or any of the tariffs to be honest, with Octopus Energy, if you'd like to use my referral code, that would be awesome. You get a £50 credit on your account when you move across successfully, but also I get a £50 credit as well. So it's a bit of a win-win, so I'll be delighted if you took advantage of that. So we're on the tariff, we've got the meter. The next bit is to look at the Powerwall and change that. So that was the second bit I did. I mentioned earlier that the Powerwall has different modes. There are 4 modes available within the Powerwall. Bring up this table here, which illustrates it nice and neatly. You've got backup only, which, as its name suggests, will be used in the event of a power outage. That's it, basically. It does what it says on the tin. The other 3 options, the first one is self-power, and you'll see from the columns to the right there, is that self-power is great for providing self-power, obviously. But from a savings point of view, it's okay, but it's not the best option. So depending on the size of your solar array, depending on your energy usage, will be factors whether self-power works for you. It was okay for us until we got the EV. As soon as we got the electric vehicle, and our power usage will be going up tremendously. The self-power just wouldn't work, and certainly in the winter with the shorter days and less sun, we wouldn't be benefiting from self-power with the Powerwall. So we moved across to time-based control, and there's two variants of time-based control. You've got a balanced and cost saving. We'll talk about cost saving first. So for cost saving, it's great for cost saving, strangely enough. Not so good for self-power. So in summary, what they say is, just scroll up, broadly speaking, is saying if your predominant motivation is to maximize your consumption of your solar and minimize your carbon footprint, then self-power mode is the best option. Alternatively, if your motives are more financial, and then cost-saving mode will probably be the better option for you in a default setting. And if you're looking for the best of both worlds, then opt for the balance mode, because that sits in the middle. So in short, cost saving will ensure that costs are kept to a minimum. In short, it won't charge during the day when energy is expensive, but it will take advantage of the cheap energy at night and charge the Powerwall if it thinks that it needs to, based on previous consumption and solar generation. Talk more about that in a bit. So to set that up, what I had to do is go into the app, bring that up on screen so you can see. So go into the Tesla app, click on Customize, click on Advance, and then choose Cost Saving. Then click on Edit Price Schedule. And here you're going to tell the app what time of day your peak and off-peak rates kick in. And there's an option for week and weekend if your tariff changes between those days of the week. The blue area is off-peak and the orange area is peak, and you move those sliders around to configure your off-peak and peak based on your time frames. And you can see here mine set from off-peak for 12:30 to 4:30. You can put more options in there as well if you have 3 rates during the day, but ours has just got 2 with Octopus Energy. I said right at the beginning of the session that I was on the Gateway 1, the initial gateway. If you're on the Gateway 2, the new gateway from Tesla, which has the backup facility, then you'll also see an additional option on this screen. You'll see the option to put the percentage of reserve that you want left in the battery, which means that the Powerwall won't drop below that level. So if you want 20% left in there just in case of a power outage, it'll then make sure that it doesn't discharge below that 20% level. So there's a screenshot of it there. Obviously I haven't got that because I've got the old one. And yeah, that's it. That's it done basically. Click done, job done. And then just sit back and let it do its stuff. And the algorithm that's sitting in the gateway will now get to work and minimize pulling power from the grid during peak times and only pull from the grid at off-peak. So in the winter, for instance, when there's little sunshine, it may top up the battery during that off-peak to power the house when it's at peak times in terms of electricity costs. Since we've swapped to that time-based control, the cost saving, we've noticed some advantages and some disadvantages. We haven't really been on it long enough to give you a long-term projection or any historic analysis. We've been on it sort of 3 or 4 weeks, so still very new. But in terms of the advantages, once you've set it, that's it. You don't need to do anything with it. You can monitor it if you like, which I have been doing just out of curiosity. But yeah, you just set it and forget it. That also works as a disadvantage as well, which I'll talk about in a second. The other advantage is that as we're coming into the winter, we know we'll get less solar power, so our battery will not be able to supply the house through the evening. It'll deplete and then we'll go on to the more expensive energy, the peak energy costs. So with the benefit of the time-based control, it will charge the battery during that off-peak time in readiness for when the electricity is more expensive. So that's the advantage. The disadvantage, I've only come across the one really, which is what a lot of people have been talking about on forums. Personally, I don't see it as a disadvantage, but you may well, so I just thought I'd highlight it. And that is that you don't actually have control over the Powerwall. You have to sort of let it do its own thing. You can't interfere. And if you know, like the next day, that there's going to be cloud or rain all day, you can't inform the Powerwall. It does what it does basically, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So Tesla recommend just leave it alone, let it do its own thing. Don't mess or tinker with it. And in fact, the more you mess and tinker with it, the more random your results are. And reading some of the forum posts about people that have been sort of trying to micromanage it, they've resulted in very erratic response to it, which Tesla is saying, well, yeah, that's effectively what you'll get, because you're not building up any picture of usage. And sort of putting that into perspective is that if the Powerwall gets it wrong and you end up a day with not enough charge in there to power the house off peak, in the long and short of it, it's not massively expensive. It's pence we're talking about for that particular one day. If it was to get it wrong every day out of 365 days, then yeah, you'd have a reasonable need to worry and complain and want to manage it. But the odd time that it gets it wrong, then that's how it works basically. Tesla have actually hinted that they're planning to bring in some kind of manual control, or a degree of manual control within the app at some point in the near future, and that'll allow you to constrain the low rate charge percentage. So when you're off peak, you can set it to a maximum of how much you want it to charge, because if you know the next day there's going to be gloriously sunny and you're going to have loads of excess solar, you can then say, well, charge to 5% or 10% or just enough to get me through to sun up in the morning, and then take the benefit from the excess solar. So watch this space, I guess, is the answer on that. That's likely to come at some point in the future, but it's not there now as I record this. There's a couple of questions as well that came out which I thought were significant. These were interactions between a customer and Tesla tech support about this time-based control. So I thought I would include them here because I thought they were very valid and useful information. So question 1, can I assume that the Powerwalls take into account the quantity of solar power that can be exported to the grid once they're fully charged in the day, and then use this to leave spare capacity for the next day? And the answer is yes, absolutely. That's what the forecaster does. Every day it evaluates how accurate it has been in predicting the customer's electrical consumption and solar production. It can then change its forecasting strategy if its performance is suboptimal. And question 2, this is a really important one, is are live weather forecast used at all, or is it a rolling day-by-day type thing? And the answer is, at this time, the intelligent forecasting is not using weather data to establish a charging-discharging strategy. Instead, it uses historic data. So there you go, straight from Tesla tech support. In terms of how we've found it, we found it really good. It's worked very well for us in the short time that we've had it. I've been sort of monitoring it day by day, yeah, time will tell really. But it's certainly where we've had low days of solar production. It's then kicked in during the cheap rate to charge, top itself up. to sort of 10%, 20%, 50%, depending on what it thinks, and then topped up again during the day through solar. So yeah, it is certainly working from us from a cost saving perspective. If I'd have kept on the cost saving option, I would have certainly run out of battery power earlier and been pulling from the more expensive power. So yeah, that's it. I hope you found that useful and given you some useful information. If there are any comments, then sort of drop them down below. As you've probably worked out, I'm no industry expert, so you know, please feel free to pick up any points that I may have got wrong or weren't very well explained, and I'll do my best to clarify those. And as ever, if you found this useful, then consider subscribing, hit that notification bell icon, and I will see you on the next one. All right, take care.